Throw seeds at the ground and see what sticks. Hope that you get something good. And then maybe you'll harvest some food. English is such a weird language, especially when you wing it. But here we go, I'll try to sing it. Landrace gardening is the idea, but some people say it's not really a land race, and even Joseph Lofthouse himself has decided to call it adaptation gardening. But basically the idea is you take a whole bunch of widely diverse genetics and throw them at your backyard, and you don't treat them very well, and whatever happens to survive, you plant it again, and then it should be better adapted to your backyard, and you should probably get yields with barely any work at all. Barely any work at all. Work at all. Hey guys, how y'all doing? Nice to see you, Hannah. Nice to see you, Christina. Welcome back again. Today we are going to talk about something I am obsessed with, and that is the concept of landrace gardening. What time signature is that? We have a really good piano player here that asks me what the time signature is. I don't know. Terry, you tell me, man. Hey, Alex, nice to see you. So, landrace gardening. For years, I liked the idea of just throwing things out there and seeing what worked. And we tested crops in our backyard to try and figure out what really would thrive in Florida. So we planted crops from around the world. We stuck to crops that we thought might work because they came from similar climates, like Southeast Asia. So it can take the bugs, it can take the heat, it can make a yield. And we talked about that when I was talking about Florida gardening yesterday. Throwing things at the yard and seeing what would work. So you think, well, here's a crop. This crop should be kind of adapted to my area, so I'm going to try it and see how it does, and it does well, then great. There's a mosquito right in front of me. Boom. So you look and you go, well, I'll throw these crops out there and see how they do. So we ended up discovering things like Everglades tomatoes and the Seminole pumpkin and kukutsa squash and chaya and cassava and other crops. And so I like this idea of throwing things out there. But another thing that I did is, and that I recommended years ago, was like, let's say you want to find a variety of bean that does well in your backyard. Well, you can do some very simple experiments. You can go out and buy 5 or 10 different packets of seeds. Spend maybe $20, $25 on seeds. Plant patches of them in your garden. And then whatever thrives, replant that variety. Now that makes a lot of sense. We did this with a test of tomatoes when we lived down in the Caribbean. We were saying, which variety of tomato will actually take the heat down here and our clay soil, the bugs, the rain, and all that. So we planted 16 different varieties of tomatoes in different beds, and we kept track of what worked, and we discovered that Heatmaster tomatoes, which was a hybrid that was bred for hot climates, and it is a determinate variety of tomato, did well. And we also discovered that the heirloom variety Carbon did well. And some of the other varieties didn't do well at all. So including varieties that we really wanted to grow well, like Barry's Crazy Cherry. It did okay for a while, and then it petered out on us pretty quickly. Whereas people in other climates have reported that they got buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets of fruit on it. And sure enough, it made lots and lots and lots of blooms. But it didn't do particularly well in our climate. So this is all very interesting information. But we're still dealing with varieties that somebody else has bred. And a lot of those varieties that somebody else has bred, right? They're bred in a particular backyard, in a particular climate, under a particular gardening style. So if you were selecting from your backyard in Atlanta for the best pumpkin variety, and you just had a bunch of different varieties of pumpkins, and you just selected the one that seemed to do well for you, and then maybe you selected for color and shape and taste and things like that. You come up with an heirloom variety in Atlanta. If you had another gardener in Anchorage, Alaska, and you shared those seeds with him after 10 years, you think you got your variety stabilized, you share them with a gardener in Anchorage, he's going to have different conditions than you have. Just because it's a productive heirloom variety and it's got a great picture in the seed catalog, etc., it doesn't mean that it's correct for your area. So the thing you could do is say, well, okay, Hickory King corn, for example. Hickory King, I believe it comes from Tennessee, early 1800s. The Hickory King corn variety, big, white, dent corn, used for cornbread, used for grits. Really good hominy corn. It's from Tennessee. Lived in Tennessee for 200 years. Well, that may not be the best variety when you get a little further north, because if you get further north and you get a shorter season, it doesn't have a long enough time to mature. Maybe if you take it down to the Caribbean, it's going to succumb to something that is a problem down there. So what happens when you create an heirloom variety is you create a genetic bottleneck of a sort. You are adapting something for a specific area generally, even if you're not trying to. And you inbreed it until you get consistent results. So it would be like if you had a population of people and you only had the people with brown hair and blue eyes intermarry for generations and generations, until you get to a point where maybe the genetics for blonde hair aren't there, or the genetics for other eye colors have disappeared. And then you get a very consistent result over time, and you have a people group that looks very similar over time. This is how dog varieties are bred. There's, oh, that type is off breed, or that one's a mutt. No, you have to get your papers, and you know who the father, the grandfather, the great-grandfather is, etc., the sire of all these, and you've got your special papers, and you know that it's this, this, and this, and this. Well, if you look at the genetics that are in something like corn, and you realize there are short varieties, tall varieties, sweet varieties, flint varieties, dent varieties, popcorn varieties. There's varieties that are bred for flour. There are varieties even that were bred for corn cob pipe production. And then you say, okay, there's corn that's almost black. There's corn that's like pure white. There's corn that's gold. There's like light yellow. There are varieties that have all different color kernels. There are varieties that have purple kernels, blue kernels, even green kernels, like Oaxacan corn from Mexico. It's green kernel corn. Super cool. But if you bred all of that genetic diversity out until you got just one type of corn, you have eliminated a lot of genetic variation. So if you wanted to reclaim a broad genetic code and set something for your area, you don't do it by starting with an heirloom variety. You instead got to get some crosses going, and then let those genetics adapt and select from them. So with landrace gardening, the idea is to create a landrace variety. That is a variety that happened to work across a geographic area. It's a landrace. It's not a purebred necessarily, where it doesn't, like if you had pumpkins, some of them have necks and some of them don't. They generally are tanned, but they all thrive in this particular area of the Mediterranean, for example. You could say it's a landrace variety. They've been passing the seeds around for a long time over this area. It has a certain amount of genetic variation. It's not a pure down inbred, so you always get exactly the same thing, but it's a variety that generally is adapted there with maybe a little bit wider genetics than a traditional heirloom. And I'm sure there's a much better scientific explanation of it, but I am not a geneticist, and I'm not a nerd. I just play one on YouTube. So if you do something similar, and this is what we learned from Joseph Lofthouse, If you're going to try and breed a landrace variety in your own backyard, a variety that has a wide set of genetics, but the genetics start to come together to fit your area, what you do is you go and you gather a bunch of heirlooms that have certain characteristics that you might want, and then you let them all cross. So instead of just a hickory king corn, for example, let's say you wanted to get multiple varieties of dent corn. So you get a blue and white, a yellow, put some bloody butcher in there and some hickory king in there, and you let them all cross. And then you save seeds from that. After multiple years of growing in your backyard, if you have a wide enough population, you got a whole bunch of new genetics coming in. The genetics will start to sort themselves out again, and through survival of the fittest and adaptation to your gardening style, they become a variety that is more suited to your yard. And I really like this because for years I used to go, oh, what if I don't get this variety correct? Like my such and such pumpkins are going to cross with the such and such pumpkins. Well, if they're all good varieties of pumpkins and I just let them all cross, and I save from the winters, it doesn't matter if some of them are green or tan or white or striped or whatever else. If they're decent pumpkins and they grow well in my yard, that's great. And over time, they just kind of adapt to the area. So, with landrace gardening, one of the things I thought was very interesting, first of all, was that you could allow your plants to grow in poor conditions on purpose. On purpose. You do not treat them well. Now, why would you do this? It's because you're breeding not for color, not for shape, not even for taste or anything like that to begin with, but you're taking a whole bunch of genetics and you're first breeding them for survival. How do they do during drought? Well, if the weak ones die, they don't reproduce. Great. What about disease? The weak ones die. They don't reproduce. Great. Bugs? The ones that don't defend themselves against the bugs, die. The ones that don't pollinate completely, maybe you don't save from them. But if they kick off under adverse conditions or they don't produce without fertilizer, you just let them die. You throw a whole bunch of genetics out there, and you may get some scrawny little ears of corn. You might get some sad-looking pumpkins to begin with. But what you've done is bred them for survival. So the ones that survive, you plant again, and you let them adapt. And hopefully you have enough genetics available that the ones that really have hardiness survive first. Some of our varieties of plants and animals have been bred for ridiculously high production at the expense of survivability. Or they've been bred for a specific look at the expense of survival. So you have to baby them. If you look at the Holstein cow, it produces a massive amount of milk, but it needs more care than some of the old varieties of cow. We have Dexter cows, which are more landracey. They don't produce as much milk. They don't have a huge body to make a ton of meat. They don't make meat quickly. They don't grow massively fast quickly. They're good at foraging. They're good at living on bad grass, so-so pasture. They're good at eating tree branches. And they're good at consistently producing babies without help. They haven't needed to be wormed. They haven't had any real health issues. But for 4 years, we've had cows and we haven't had any die. We haven't had any stillbirths. And we've gotten a consistent yield of milk. And they just keep going. So that is a breed that's more bred for survival. I have a friend who has Jersey cows, and they produce a lot of milk. But his Jersey cows are rather like owning a Porsche instead of owning a Honda Civic. Honda Civic is not going to impress your friends very much. It's a good little zippy, reliable car, but it's not super fancy. However, it runs and runs and runs. It doesn't need to have regular maintenance done on it. It doesn't need a lot of care. It doesn't need special fuel or babying or to go to a specialist in order to get fixed. It just runs. It's made for normal people. It's a survival car, right? The Honda Civic just runs and runs and runs. So when you're looking at your backyard crops, if you're planting varieties that are maximized for modern commercial techniques, a lot of irrigation, very tight spacing, a lot of fertilizer, regular tillage, they have to pump lots and lots into these fields, but they do get extremely high yields. I mean, the science of farming is quite impressive. The genetic modification, the super tight spacing, the GPS planting, the tillage, the harvester machines, all of the soil analysis they do to figure out exactly which chemical fertilizers to apply and when they put on fungicides and all that sort of thing. So they get really crazy yields. The yields of corn that we get today are way above the yields of corn of the past, but that does come at a price. You have extremely non-diverse genetics. Very, 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 very lacking in diversity in the genetics. And they are not bred for survival so much as they are bred for production. So what you're going to do on a backyard scale is take all your heirlooms, let them cross, don't treat them very well, and save seeds from them. And let them adapt. Let the genetics do what the genetics do. Let the epigenetics flip the switches in order to adapt the next generations to your conditions. So our experiments so far have been with daikon radishes, with pumpkins, with watermelons, and we have also planted patches of corn multiple times. It's much easier to adapt plants, obviously, that are outbreeding plants. If you don't know about outbreeding versus inbreeding, some plants self-pollinate readily, like tomatoes. If you save seeds from a tomato, you generally get the same kind of tomato again because they self-pollinate. Beans self-pollinate. So if you had one bean in a packet of beans and you planted one bean plant by itself, it does not need a pollinator. It self-pollinates. The flowers are pretty much closed. So it self-pollinates and it makes the same sort of bean again most of the time, unless it gets crossed or unless there's a mutation. But when you have corn or pumpkins or melons or those various wind-pollinated or insect-pollinated plants that cross very readily, they're outbreeders. And daikon radishes are an outbreeder. They can pick up a lot of genetics and things can happen very quickly and things can change very quickly. And so they're very suited to the Landrace technique. So you throw a whole bunch of genetics out there, you let them cross, you don't treat them very well for a few years, you let them adapt to what you're doing. If you're still getting some yields, then you can start to say, okay, what do I like about this? And you can start to say the things you like. And then you have all kinds of crazy nerdy experiments you could do. Like if I just took all of the purple kernels out again from the corn that I've bred, I could plant a patch, a solid block of just corn with purple kernels that now has genetics from a bunch of different corn in it, and then just keep saving the ones with purple kernels and see what happens. Or I could save corn from the very tallest plants. If I wanted the most mass possible, say I wanted to be able to feed my animals or make more compost or silage, I could breed for the largest. Or I could only keep the ears from the earliest producers of corn if I had short seasons. I could say, okay, well this one does it. Now then again, your climate may do some of this for you. If you have a short season and you plant a whole bunch of different varieties of flint corn and some of them do not ripen up ears before it freezes, well, they've just been eliminated from the gene pool. Joseph Lofthouse talks about doing an experiment with planting watermelons. He has a short season. Watermelons are not particularly good for his climate. So he tried to get the shortest, fastest producing, the shortest season, fastest producing watermelons possible. And he planted them. And he planted hundreds of seeds. And he got a melon or two that actually ripened. And then he planted the seeds from those melons, and he kept adding seeds from other people's melons until he got 20 melons, 30 melons, 40 melons, 50 melons, and started to get a faster producing melon. So this opens up a lot of possibilities. You're not just limited to what's in the seed catalog. You can go through the seed catalog and just pick up stuff. Hey, here's some, there's a pumpkin that grows in Canada. There's a pumpkin that grows in Mexico. There's a pumpkin from Atlanta. There's a pumpkin from Southern California. There's a pumpkin from Europe. There's a Czechoslovakian spotted pumpkin. Cool. And you throw them all together and you let them all cross, and may the genetics that fit your area survive. And after a few years of going through your conditions, your soil, your bugs, your drought, your rain, you hopefully have something that will consistently produce pumpkins, but it may not look like anything that you expected. And then you could say, okay, well, I only want to save seeds from the green and white striped ones. You start to readjust. Or you can get really clever and just cross those plants by pretending to be a bee and getting up early in the morning and, cross-pollinating those ones and closing the flowers and try to make deliberate crosses. But you don't necessarily need to do that. I don't bother with that. I just let everything cross and see what happens. And then save from the ones that win. And something that's really funny is that we let a whole bunch of seminal pumpkin varieties cross. There are various varieties of Cucurbita machata, various varieties of seminal pumpkin, plus other Cucurbita machatas like tan cheese and some weird looking one that looks like a peanut. But they're all in the same species of pumpkin. We let them all cross. And then this year I said, you know what? I'm so tired of pumpkins. Last year we had over 1,000 pounds of pumpkins. That I decided I was only going to plant seeds from this black Caribbean pumpkin that I grew last year. So I planted those out in the field. And turns out those black pumpkins with warts crossed with some of my seminal pumpkins. And now I have these bizarre flesh-colored warty pumpkins with weird modeling on them. They are the ugliest, weirdest pumpkins I have ever seen in my life. I am going to save the seeds from them and continue to let them grow. I am naming them the zombie pumpkin because they really look like some sort of warty, bizarre flesh. They are the weirdest looking pumpkins. That was a wide cross from this warty, black, bumpy variety down from the island of Grenada with the Florida Seminole Pumpkin Heirlooms mixed with various other tan machata varieties. So it's this bizarre mottled, they almost look like they're moldy. They're amazing. Zombie pumpkins. Some of them are this big. Like one of them looks like a gigantic, weird half pear shape with warts all over it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But it's doing fine. No irrigation, sandy soil, no care, and it's making pumpkins. So it's a variety that the world has never seen before, and that's the wonders of the genetics, is that when they start crossing like that, you end up with things that you may have never seen before. I'm sure sometime in the past there's been something like it, but it's exciting to see that sort of thing. Now, I said that I didn't deliberately plant the Seminole pumpkins. But guess what? Over the rest of my property, there are pumpkins everywhere. Everywhere. The old compost pile that was at the edge of where we grew the yams near our grocery row gardens grew pumpkins. Tons of pumpkins. Pumpkins showed up in the herb garden. Pumpkins showed up in one of my daughter's gardens. Pumpkins showed up in the old sweet potato patch. Pumpkins showed up in the food forest. Pumpkins showed up growing out of one of our compost piles in full shade, ran all the way out onto the lawn about 40 to 60 feet where the light is, and started making pumpkins. We are going to have pumpkins. Lots of pumpkins. But guess what we have? Survival pumpkins. Pumpkins we did not even plant. Accidental pumpkins. The pumpkins have become a weed on my property after multiple years of allowing them to cross and not treating them very well. So the ones that are winning are the ones that are adapted to nasty, sandy, bug-ridden conditions. It's the funniest thing. I did not want more pumpkins. Well, we got pumpkins. We'll probably get a few 100 pounds of pumpkins that we didn't even plant. We just mow around the edges of them like, well, there they are. We'll just let them grow. But that's pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting. And it shows that there's more potential in the genetics than we know of. If you think about it, a lot of those heirloom varieties, imagine that population of people with only the brown hair and the blue eyes. You start to get inbreeding issues. You start to lose the ability to adapt. So you have these very inbred heirloom varieties that do consistently make the same thing, and they're well known. Oh, this one is well known for this, and this one consistently has this flavor, or that colored cob, or these types of spots, or whatever else. This one is known to be disease resistant or bug resistant. This one is not. But they are very inbred, and they don't have a lot of adaptability left in them. But if you take that isolated population and you cross it with another one, and then another one, and another one, another one, through the wonder of buying seeds from all over the place, we're really, really blessed to be able to get seeds from everywhere. We can let all those varieties cross in our yard, save from the winners, and then get food for less effort. The experiment that we did with daikon radishes, we've planted what we wanted was a large, rounded off daikon that would be good for making kimchi and good to add to our sauerkraut and our other ferments. And one that would also be mild and good for roasting and eating. My wife likes to slice them and roast them, and they're delicious that way. But they're also really good when you just pickle them in salt brine and eat them. Or you make them into kimchi with some ginger and some dried shrimp or fish sauce if you don't have dry shrimp. Put in some hot peppers. You get that awesome rich flavor. And if you can get some Napa cabbage. I never seem to be able to grow the right cabbages here to make the really good kimchi. So occasionally I'll just go and buy one of those fluffy, frilly, beautiful cabbages that have the great texture in kimchi. But anyhow, we crossed a hybrid variety from Johnny's called Red King that makes nice, big, consistently sweet, well-textured radishes that don't get soft cores. They're beautiful, very, very rich red color on the outside, white on the inside. But they make that big shape that we like. They're really good for processing. But they're a hybrid, which means that if you plant seeds from them, you don't get necessarily the same thing again. You get a mix of whatever was hybridized into it. That's fine. That overall thing we want is that thing. And then we also planted white varieties, Japanese varieties, and Korean varieties that are known to be large, mild. So we went to the Asian seed company, Kisuzawa Seeds, I think it is, and we bought a variety of those, and we let multiple varieties cross together. So we had these reds and these whites, just mixed the seeds together, planted the rows, and just let them grow. And instead of harvesting them, we harvested the ones that grew slower and were smaller, and we allowed the biggest ones to live. We thinned them out to the very biggest, nicest looking ones, and we allowed all those to cross-pollinate. Then we saved the seeds and we planted them again. And then we allowed them again. We took the smallest, the misshapen ones, the ones that we weren't that happy with, and we allowed them all to cross and pollinate. And we've done this for multiple years now. And that has been an interesting experiment because now we only see the very occasional red one. We see a decent amount of white ones. But the pure red strain has mostly died out. What we are seeing is a lot of purple ones. They look like purple top turnips. You guys have probably seen the purple top turnips. They're purple top with a white root, but it's a daikon that looks like a purple top turnip. But what we're getting is consistent, mild, sweet, large growing daikons that just seem to be pretty bomb proof. They just grow. And they've got kind of an interesting mix of colors. Probably about 2/3 purple, and then the remaining third is mostly white with a few red. And that's pretty interesting. But it worked. Another year we planted pak choi. And pak choi did not do particularly well. It was a bad season. They started bolting. They didn't look very good. And I said, I'm just going to chop these things down. So I chopped them down. I tilled the area. I planted some other crops. Well, lo and behold, a few months later, we had pak choi again. But this time, I didn't even try saving seeds from the first one. I was like, you know, they all bolted. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Forget it. I'll try pak choi again later. We ended up with big, beautiful, a few of them that showed up in a couple of different colors of pak choi, which was interesting. Different coloration in them that were just beautiful and rich and bug-free. So out of the many pak choi seeds that had fallen onto the ground, a few of them that survived made really big, beautiful pak choi heads that were better than any that we had grown before. So even in that 1 year of seed saving and accidentally just tilling over all the blooming heads and the ones that had pods all over them, forget it, I'm done. We inadvertently ended up with better pak choi. Probably if we just let that stuff grow after a few years, you know, just till it under every once in a while. Chop it all to the ground and just let it fall all over the place, chop and drop it as mulch. We would end up with pak choi that would be weeds in our backyard. Very interesting, isn't it? It takes the stress off of seed saving. You start with good parents, you end up with good results. The ones that you don't like, you don't save seeds from. The other big one that we've been working on is the Landrace watermelon. I'm going to give you guys a link here because you'll find this interesting. You can see some of what I'm talking about actually at these links. This is my daughter's seed store. So she gets a percentage of the seeds that I grow for these projects because we always end up with more seeds than we need. I plant some and then she gets the rest for her seed store. So you could see some of these. You could see the corn. Looks like she made, yep, there's the corn. We've got this Celosia argentea. That stuff just self-seeds all over the place and we save from its self-seeding. The daikon radishes, the Landrace in progress watermelons. The Everglades tomato are an old variety that's been there. The mixed tobacco seeds, those are for the ones that survived. We actually have had tobacco self-seed in the garden now for the last 2 years and grow tobacco plants without worrying about it. And then the purple amaranth just crosses with itself and grows like crazy. So that is a kind of an interesting thing to see how it's played out over the last 3 or 4 years of just consistently allowing these crosses and saving and replanting. The very encouraging one has been the watermelon Landrace. That's the one my son Ezekiel has been working on. He grew watermelons for multiple years down in the Caribbean and did well at it. And he had a few different varieties. He had some local varieties, some American varieties, and then he got some seeds from Indonesia, which he also planted, and he let them all cross. But when we came back to the States, we couldn't bring those in because the USDA frowns on that sort of thing. So his seeds got left behind. And so he started again when he got to the States, and he read Landrace gardening, and he decided, I'm going to do, instead of just having a couple of varieties and letting them cross, I'm going to allow them to cross in a wide range. And some people actually mailed seeds to him when they heard he was doing it. So he ended up with more seeds than he expected. He mixed about 25 varieties together. There were yellow watermelons and black-skinned watermelons and Charleston Grays and things like Crimson Sweet, Congo, some of those old, like the ancient watermelon. There was a lot of different varieties that were all mixed in, and he just let them cross repeatedly. And yellow flesh, red flesh, pink flesh, kind of orangey flesh. And then they have gotten to be quite vigorous. So what we did this year, they got a tiny amount of fertilizer at the very beginning of the season because I was afraid they were going to die. because it was very droughty. So I took a weak fertilizer solution and watered them once because I figured, well, maybe that'll perk them up a little bit. Let's get them a little electrolytes and see if they live. But I probably shouldn't have even done that. But anyhow, we tilled a big area of pasture under, did not take care of them, and now there's a ridiculous amount of watermelons. It's over, I think it's up to about 400 pounds of watermelons. There's probably about another 300 or 400 that need to be pulled in literally this week. I was looking at them yesterday, and I'm like, I gotta tell him to go out there and pick these things again because there's a ton of them. But now he's got really weird things like watermelons that look like a Charleston gray, but they're yellow inside and they're round. Or there's one that's almost pitch black, like this lens cap right here. It's almost this black. I have never seen a watermelon that looks like it's carved out of charcoal. There are varieties that are almost just kind of a pure green with little yellow blotches here and there. There was one that was really a blue-green, a very deep blue-green with darker markings on it. But something else that we noticed that was kind of strange that I hadn't seen before, some of these watermelons started developing the ability to root out of the nodes like pumpkins do, like really aggressively put roots out of the nodes in the sandy soil to hold onto the ground. And I had not seen them do that before. But I've come across some now that are actually rooting into the ground, and it reminded me of people talking about the old corn varieties in Mexico that they don't fertilize. They're actually fixing their own nitrogen. They have an agreement with certain nitrogen fixing bacteria that allows them to do that. So to see that crazy genetic variation and to see some of these sort of interesting traits show up, like the ability to root heavily into the ground at the nodes, is cool. So a whole bunch of different inbred melons that always make the same exact thing. I love those Charleston gray melons. But now they're all mixed up. There's sugar babies in there. There's moon and stars in there. There's all those old classic varieties. They're just all thrown together along with some modern hybrids, some modern commercial varieties. There's Carolina Cross, which makes some of the largest melons in the world. It's a record-winning melon. And he threw some of those in there. He threw some more of them in there this year to try and make the overall size larger, let some of those genetics cross in. And now he's saving seeds from them. And I've seen watermelons now that have white seeds on the inside, like white, fully mature seeds, but that also have some black seeds in them that are also fully mature, which is weird. I didn't even know they could do that. You'll see a gigantic watermelon. It has little itty-bitty seeds in it. And then you've got some small watermelons that have huge seeds in them. And it's just been, like, they don't look like any melons we've seen before. We had one of them last year that tasted like lychee fruit. It had that watermelon flavor, but it had this floral, rosy overtone that I have never tasted in a watermelon before. So those genetics went back in a higher proportion. We planted more of those. There was a yellow watermelon that tasted like sugar cane. Like, you go out and you peel a sugar cane on a hot day and you take a bite out of it, and that just rich grass, sweet undertones of molasses and caramel, beautiful like light brown sugar flavor. It's like, this watermelon tastes like sugar cane. That's crazy. But these genetics are out there. We're just not finding them because we're letting other people go ahead and recommend it, and we get a beautiful packet of seeds, and it says, this is like this, and it does this, and it does this, and you expect it's going to do what it's going to do, and it does what it says it's going to do most of the time. And it's been bred by somebody else far away, and we've lost some of the joy of it. And Landrace gardening really brought back more joy into our gardening, instead of saying, oh shoot, I wonder if I can save this exact variety of Seminole pumpkin that I grew before. No, now I've got zombie pumpkins. There's nothing I can do about it. They're corrupted forever. They're undead pumpkins. But that's kind of more interesting than any pumpkins I ever had before. I mean, we'll see what they taste like. But to see these different watermelon varieties, super cool. To see the way the corn is crossing is cool. Out of all of them, the corn is the worst looking. The watermelons have made a lot of watermelons with no care, or almost no care. The corn hasn't done quite so well on almost no care. But if we're breeding it for survival, we'll see how it does. And it will be interesting. A couple of people recommended, next year, why don't you fertilize one patch of it and don't fertilize the other patch of it? and see what the full genetic expression could be on the corn. So that sounds like fun. That sounds like fun. I could throw a bunch of cow pies out there in the fall over an area that I want to grow corn in and just till that area under and see what it does when it has extra nutrition. It might be a super corn. I mean, the fact that it's actually producing yields with as little care as it's gotten is a good thing. That's cool. So maybe if you juice it a little bit, it's already been bred for survival, you give it a little extra nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Maybe that sucker will really make some corn. But we'll see. Yep. Corn requires a lot of nitrogen. But even without a lot of nitrogen, it had a little bit of cottonseed meal at the beginning to get it running. I planted it with a dusting of cottonseed meal and some of Steve Sullivan's mix. So it had some micronutrients and some cottonseed meal, but not much. Not like those beautiful, amazing green, solid green blocks of GMO corn that I see by the side of the road all the time when I'm driving to church. But it's made a yield. And if I couldn't get fertilizer, or I didn't have enough cow manure, and I wanted to till a big area and get a yield, I could still get a yield. And now I know those watermelons will give me a yield because Ezekiel crossed them for multiple years, and it just basically planted in sand. We tilled the weeds and the grass under and planted them. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So there's a lot to this Landrace gardening thing. If you don't have the book, if you look at the top, I put a link to his book. That is Joseph Lofthouse's book, Landrace Gardening. And also, if you want to get the Start a Food Forest the Easy Way course and my Florida gardening course and a lot of my talks from various events and some in-depth presentations on all kinds of things, I have a whole university of videos off of YouTube in the private group for my subscribers, and I answer questions over there. We interact and we have a lot of fun. We post pictures of our garden. We do regular challenges. We've got almost 200 people in the group, and if you like what I'm doing, you want to get out of the YouTube ecosystem, but you also want to be able to grow more food for less work and get real, like, in-depth gardening education for really cheap, like less than the cost of going to the grocery store once, you can join for a year and you can watch all the videos. So if you're an annual member right now, I know I can count on you for a year. All of the stuff there it can be watched, except I think there's a butchering video that might be too scary for some people, and that's in its own category. But I put a link to that above too. That is the Survival Gardener group on School, and it's been a really good community. And we're doing a grow 500 pounds of food in the garden challenge right now, and one of the gardeners just made it to 500 pounds of food from his backyard garden, which is just awesome. And you know how he fed it? He hunted wild boar on his property. And then the carcasses, whatever was left after they were butchered, or if they were too big and nasty to butcher, he buried them in trenches and planted gardens over them. Talk about some serious yields and some serious cheap. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. He also buried fish waste from going fishing. He's got a creek that runs through. He throws all the extra fish waste, whatever is normally waste that people would throw away, into the trash. He buried it in the garden and he planted over it. So it's very, very, very well-fed vegetables, and he got over 500 pounds of food out of there. So people have been sharing their stories and sharing pictures of their gardens and getting help and plant ID and all kinds of other stuff. A really good community. So you can click the link to that. If you join as an annual member, then you get to see all of the video training courses and everything. And I just finished the 6-part Florida gardening course this last month for those of you living in the Sunshine State and dealing with the sand. But I already had up there, and some of you have seen it because I recognize some of your names. Some of you have seen it, the in-depth food forest course. That's a 6-part food forest course called Start a Food Forest the Easy Way. That is in there too. So go check it out. Carl says, I'm veggie, but those hogs gotta go. They're too destructive to the native critters and plants. Yeah, exactly, which is why he hunts them off of there. So I'm going to answer some questions now. How much do the pumpkins weigh on average? Good question. I would have to ask Ezekiel that, but generally they're clocking in around 15 pounds, 20 pounds. Carl, yeah, I've seen those watermelons, the 3-foot long watermelons. I'm not sure which variety those are. That might be rattlesnake. Look up rattlesnake melon and see if that's what it looks like. I think it's probably rattlesnake. You could feed 20 kids in summer with one giant watermelon. Yes. Yes, I'm watching here. Yes, I used to make furniture too. You're around back then, William. I remember. Before I cut my hand off with a machete. Well, I only almost cut a finger off. It wasn't that big a deal. It was only a minor surgery and a loss of a couple of tendons. Joe says, besides the traditional red watermelon, I've seen yellow and white varieties here. Prefer the red. I'm old school. Yeah, I like the red too. I generally find that I just like the flavor of the red better, but that yellow sugarcane melon was so good. So good. Carl says, plant genetics are wild and often way more complex than critters. The longest genome in the world belongs to a little weed that looks like ugly rosemary. Go figure. Yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting. The amount of treasure hunting that you can do inside of plants' genetic code is just incredible. I feel like God created this world with a lot of stuff hidden for us to discover later. Like there's gold and silver buried in the hills, and there are all these genetics in animals and in plants. Everything from a wolf to a pug dog is buried in those genetics. You know, and if you look at just Brassica oleracea and all of the variation, it's incredible what could be brought out from the genetic code. I mean, Brussels sprouts and cabbages being the same species. Cauliflower, broccoli, same species, you know, and you see all that variation. It's amazing. So, yeah, I grew up near the train tracks, so I don't mind the train. Still hear it. That's right, the trick is matching the plant to the dirt, not trying to make the dirt match the plant. I agree. Trying to get through here. Yeah, thank you, Christina. I appreciate you being over there at school. It really has been a good group. I realize that it's not as easy to work with everybody directly on YouTube and answer all the questions that I get. I try to, but as the channel has grown, it's gotten harder. So I created the community, and I said, you know, I'm going to do in-depth garden teaching. On YouTube, you're kind of bound to the algorithms and the ad revenue and that kind of stuff, and I want to teach. I don't necessarily want to do clickbait, but if you don't do clickbait, you don't get the views. In my group, it doesn't matter. People are there to learn how to grow food. So I do in-depth presentations on learning how to grow food, and I title them exactly what they are. How to Grow Food, Part 1. I was actually a miracle that I got that this healed well enough right here in order for me to play guitar again. I prayed over that a lot. I got it back, so I'm not as fast as I used to be, though. Man shouldn't have made a pug dog. Yeah, I agree. It's weird. Clay says also humans have only explored 10% of the ocean, apparently. Yeah, the rest of it, there's sea monsters down there. I totally believe it. So, yeah. Talking about brassicas, broccoli, and cauliflower leaves are also edible. This is true. Katie Ann says, I like the school group too. Not racking up many pounds yet in zone 6 though. Yeah, your season is still coming in. Ours is starting to fade out. Like I've already blown it for this year. It's over. Whatever I didn't do, it's undone. So Christina says, most of the food in my grocery gardens this year were volunteers. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. God created the mind that made the pug dog. He saw it coming. This is true. He predestined it to appear at some point, I guess. They're a safe kid dog because of their flat face. Harder to bite them with that face. We should breed flat-faced alligators. I would love a pet alligator with a flat face. That's pretty good. Hey, Dan Low Music, nice to see you. SH Living says, would love to cross Seminole Machado with the larger French Machadas, the princess types, but can't get the Frenchies to survive the powdery mildew. Yeah, that's definitely a problem. Some of those varieties from Europe just won't cut it, and they just don't do well down here. I've had types of like, oh man, I'd really love to grow that, and it's even a Cucurbita Machada, which is generally well adapted to the south, and they just didn't make it. They just did terrible. They're beautiful, big, beautiful pumpkins, you know, and no, I don't want to do it. However, it's possible if you can stave off the mildew long enough that they will cross with the Seminoles, and then you can save the seeds from the Seminole pumpkins and maybe get some of those genetics to come into the next generations and end up with a more disease-proof variety. So let's say you were just going to go out there with a fungicide. Not that you should do this for survival reasons, but because you wanted it to live long enough to cross. If you went out there with a fungicide, or even you just put compost tea on them, or a slurry of yogurt and water. If you have water, rainwater, so it doesn't kill the active bacteria, and you throw some kefir or yogurt in it, and you whip it up, and you spray it on the leaves repeatedly, you can often keep the powdery mildew at bay. Then you could deliberately cross-pollinate from them with a paintbrush, take it from the male blooms on the French pumpkins and then cross it over to the females on the Seminole pumpkins and save those. Then you know that those genetics are in there, and you may be able to breed a larger, prettier variety of Seminole pumpkins. So yeah, there you go. Puginators. We have the technology. Paging Dr. Moreau. Yeah, multiple of my kids have read that book. I read that when I was a kid. My wife does not like that book. It's pretty depressing, but yes, I've read that multiple times. Freedom Lover says, how do you get self-pollinating tomatoes to cross with currant tomatoes? Thank you. It's a matter of basically ripping apart the bloom on the one and crossing it with the other. It's not something that I've done successfully, but that's how people like Craig LaHalliere, who wrote Epic Tomatoes. I interviewed him once. Craig LaHalliere talks about crossing tomato varieties on purpose. You can do it. Like, you could take a beefsteak and cross it with an Everglades tomato if you wanted. But you have to dissect the flower and reach the inside part of it before it opens up to a certain level or something like that. And then save the seeds from that one, and you get an F1, and then you plant they'll all be pretty much the same the first generation. And then the second generation is when you get those wild spread of tomatoes, and you save from those to get what you are looking for. Yeah, the Kikuta grows really, really well and really fast. It's very good. Highly recommend it. So, if any of you guys want to join us over on school, I got the link above, and Landrace Gardening is above. And then, again, if you are interested in any of the seeds that my daughter carries, that is the Good Garden store I just dropped a link to. If you want to continue any of our Landrace experiments, and I hope you just mix them up with everything on your own property as well. Just take all those genetics and start sloshing them together and saving out of the slosh. So, I am going to play a song. The last live stream, somebody left a comment below and said, "You lost me when you started singing." It's like, well, I started singing in the first 30 seconds, so I guess I saved you some time. Oh, you're never too old for a pony ride. No Oh, you're never too old for a pony ride. Never too old for a pony ride. Oh, you're never too old for a pony ride. They're kinda like a horse, but they're smaller. A giraffe is like a pony, but his neck is taller. If you wanna ride, just give me a holler. All rides are $1. Oh, you're never too old for a pony ride. Oh, you're never too old for a pony ride. Oh, you're never too old for a pony ride. No, you're never too old for a pony ride. That song is called, you'll never guess it, Pony Ride. Little Susie don't like hamsters 'cause they sneak into her room at night. Got a pen under her pillow so she can poke 'em in the eye, poke 'em in the eye. Won't let them catch her sleeping. She'll be alert when the hamsters are creeping. Poke 'em in the eye, 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 poke 'em in the eye. Little Johnny loves a hamster named Brian, gives him all his hugs and kisses. Sending out the hamster haters and the friends to sink and swim with the fishes. Well, the snakes all smile and the lizards laugh. Brian the hamster's Johnny's little golden calf. So sing a song of picket fence, sing a song of pie. All my little homeboys, poke 'em in the eye. Spin around the wheel, press your face up to the glass. Smile with your eyeballs as the pretty hamsters pass. I'll see a carving knife, but they got short tails. Poking eyes is a way of life, at least we are not snails. Well, Vic was slick, is on the kicky lick, making some stick over who flicked his bick. But he got named by his quick dick, who always tricks sticks at a quick bit. I'll pick up sticks when they try to throw pies at the multicolored flies, wearing itty bitty suits and ties. But the flies are quick and they know the trick, and they poke 'em in the eye. Poke 'em in the eye, 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 poke 'em in the eye. Well, the hamsters I know are too cool for school. You know I take 'em swimming in my hamster swimming pool. So grab your sneakers, teach your hamster how to fly. And if he gets rowdy, just poke 'em in the eye. Poke 'em in the eye, 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 poke 'em in the eye. Oh, the things you write when you're a kid to annoy your sisters. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. It's fun. Thank you very much for the super chat. We have a super chat from Joe Serrano. Thank you very much. I will sing for tips. I am not proud. Definitely, I will take requests for tips any day. So, $2 here for your Irie guitar and vocals. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There was one particular song. There's one particular song that we haven't sung on one of the live streams in a while. And it's a song in which we name a whole bunch of different varieties of food. The song is called Bad Dreams. And that is a song that's like at least 8 minutes. Because it turns into an absolute food fight in the middle of the song. I'm tempted to play it. Definitely tempted to play it. I need to find the lyrics for the lyrics and chords for Rubbery Eggs again, because I have to remember the chord progression. It's kind of complicated for me. There we go. Alright. Yeah, if you did 30,000 years, I will do 30,000 years for $25 tonight. Alright. This song is called Bad Dreams. And, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Well, I lay down to bed around the middle of the night, and then I felt so hungry I had to get up for a bite. So I looked in the fridge for something good to gnaw. Promptly made a pile out of everything I saw. Well, I should have known better than to pack up my gut. When I eat a snack food, I deserve what I got. Bad dreams, all night, all night, all night. Bad dreams, all night, all night. Bad. Oh, first I made a sandwich with 4 slices of bread. I didn't have mayo, so I used ketchup instead. Grabbed a slice of ham and some other kind of meat. Packed in some marshmallows, topped it off neat. Then I had bad dreams all night, all night. Very, very bad dreams all night, all night, all night. Bad. A string of sausages, a full cup of cream, a bag of pork rinds, and a pitcher of tea. 12 donuts plus some broccoli and cheese. 15 candies from a box of jelly beans. Then I had bad dreams all night, all night. Very, very bad dreams all night, all night, all night. Bad dreams, 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 bad dreams all night, all night, all night. Bad dreams. Now I don't know what did me in. Could it have been that innocent sorbet? Or was it the walnut bread my wife left out the night before? All I know is that my sleep was fitful, and running through my head were all of these bad dreams. So what other kind of food did I eat, huh? I had Twinkies, I had apple pie and mashed bananas, anchovy ice cream in a one. Come on, guys. Come on, feed them in there. Plantain and okra. Plantain and okra. Have a good night, Chicken Farmer Plus. And some chocolate and some southern fried okra. Where's the combination? The better I say. Goulash, goulash, pineapple, and barbecue chicken, goat cheese, baklava, cockroach meat, mushrooms, dandelion root, and a burger and fries, Twinkie nanners for life, oh, a brat and a croissant, sriracha, a vanilla milkshake, blueberries, LOL, and a glass of cardoon wine, Skittles with pickles, crookneck, casserole, fried mulberries and blueberry scones, sweet potato casserole, holy basil burritos, spam, 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 beautiful spam, 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 spinach and watermelon, pineapple one pizza on another pineapple pizza with peaches and garlic. And more pizza and pumpkin pie with pizza pie and pumpkin pie and pizza pie and a pineapple pizza on another pineapple pizza. Orange juice, toothpaste smoothies, bowls of cherry tomatoes and anchovies, green eggs and ham, semi-ham, and I haven't crayfish and mustard and frosted flakes, but a hard pass on the tofu because we don't want to drop our testosterone levels through the floor. Steak, ketchup and marshmallow sandwich with mashed potatoes and sunchokes, ooh-hoo! Daylily flowers, chicken satay, garfish and guava, pot pie, diascoria alata. No bad words, Blinn. Nice thing you bleeped that out there. Raw milk and vinegar cocktails for the very best of gut health. Throw a little kefir in there and some of those shots of yak milk, fermented in, woo, Taco Bell. I miss Taco Bell. Durian donuts kinda taste like marshmallows and boiled onions. That's kinda what durian tastes like. It's bad. Cranberry yogurt, coffee and biscotti. Woo! Aronia berries, also known as choke cherries. Chilaquiles en green salsa. In salsa verde. And cow, and vino, and jackfruit jelly beans, cream-filled donuts. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, Kimmy. Sheep milk, hoagies and grinders, hoagies and grinders, hoagies and grinders, hoagies and grinders. Woo! Stew. Like juice stew. We can't do that anymore. And fermented chicken feet and celery and blueberry and jelly and Japanese natto and sauerkraut, or how we lost the war stew. Strawberry wine explains a lot. Not beans, not beans. So what kind of bad dreams did I have? Well, I was chased by a sausage riding in a car. I almost drowned inside a peanut butter jar. Had to fall in out with a girl made of beef. Caught wearing nothing in the produce aisle but a leaf. Yes, I had so many dreams. Very, very bad dreams. All night, all night, all night. Bad dreams, bad dreams, bad dreams, bad dreams all night. This is a lot of beans. Okay, so we've got a $25 super chat here from William. So I have to sing 30,000 Years and not mention any food in it, I think. There is actually a food mentioned in it, so. But that one will be okay, I guess. But somewhere beneath the ice, somewhere cold and deep, that's where we found it. Sleeping through the years, we brought it to the light and took it home. Look at me, Mom. I found a flower. Look at me, Mom. See it blooming. 30,000 years. 30,000 basket full, dried meat and currants, pick flowers on her way. Dropped a posy in the grass, lost in the moonlight for an age or two. Look at me, Mom, I'm doing science. Look at me, Mom, see it blooming. 30,000 years, 30,000 years, 30,000 years, 30,000 years. And there's really, I'm gonna add this part one of these days. Sometimes science lets you down. Sometimes science lets you, there it is. Sometimes science lets you down, down into the ground. Sometimes science lets you down, 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 down. Sometimes science lets you down, down into the ground. Oh yeah. It's going to be a song one of these days when I get around to writing songs again, instead of pitching my courses on the internet. But anyhow, so much fun. Thank you guys for watching this evening. Sometimes science lets you down, down into the ground. Yes. The sound of science. This is good. Good job, Julie. You're my kind of gardener. Don't talk to your therapist about this, though. I don't have a therapist, obviously. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you all. Thank you for the time. It's encouraging. Thank you for the super chats, particularly to Joe. Joe, you're always so encouraging. I appreciate you. William, same thing. It's been nice having you guys around for so many years, so I appreciate it. And all of you that showed up tonight, thank you very much. And hopefully I'll see some of you over at school in the group. And also Landrace Gardening. Really good book. I highly recommend it. I'm just going to keep telling everybody to go get Joseph Lofthouse's book. It works. Landrace Gardening for Stronger Crops. Catch y'all soon. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.